You're watching FISM News.
Greek police clashed over the weekend with thousands of migrants seeking to enter the EU from Turkey, which has kept a lid on migration from the Middle East into Europe since 2016 in exchange for funds to help refugees.
Police fired tear gas to repel hundreds of stone-throwing migrants who sought to force their way across the border from Turkey on Sunday, with thousands more behind them after Ankara relaxed curbs on their movement.
It was the second straight day of confrontations at the border crossing by the northeastern Greek town of Kastanis. A Greek government source said some migrants blocked from crossing had also thrown metal bars and handheld tear gas canisters at police on the Greek side.
The European Union's chief executive, Ursula von der Leyen, expressed sympathy with Turkey over the conflict in Syria on Monday, but said it was impermissible for Ankara to let refugees and migrants on its territory cross into Europe. The 27 EU states are struggling to agree on a joint position with Turkey, which says it will no longer honor its 2016 deal with the EU.
The EU has also been divided on how to share the burden of caring for refugees and migrants reaching its territories. A 2015 spike in arrivals all but overwhelmed Europe.
EU interior ministers will hold an extraordinary meeting on Wednesday to discuss the situation at the bloc's border with Turkey, and specifically how they can support Greece and Bulgaria patrol their frontiers.
The EU is seeking to engage with Turkey's president to see what it can do to revive their migration pact.
The EU's options include offering more funds for more than 3 million refugees Turkey hosts, stepping up humanitarian aid inside Syria, and supporting the frontline members, Greece and Bulgaria, in policing the bloc's external border. On Monday, the U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said government military laboratories are working to develop a vaccine for the fast-spreading coronavirus.
Top U.S. health officials have said any vaccine is up to 18 months away, and there is no treatment for the respiratory disease, although patients can receive supportive care.
Protective gear and test kits are being distributed to U.S. military facilities with a priority on distribution to the Korean Peninsula, General Mark Milley said. South Korea reported 599 new cases on Monday, taking its national tally to 4,335. There have been 26 deaths as well.
The number of coronavirus cases in the U.S. has ticked up in recent days, with more than 75 confirmed cases, including 2 deaths reported. Authorities across the U.S. prepared for more cases of illness caused by the new virus, with the emphasis on ratcheting up the number of available test kits.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sought re-election on Monday under the weight of an imminent corruption trial, with the country's third vote in less than a year predicted to end in another deadlock. Netanyahu has denied wrongdoing in the 3 graft cases against him.
The election follows inconclusive votes last April and September that have harmed Netanyahu's perceived political invincibility from being Israel's longest-serving prime minister.
Israel's economy has weathered the political uncertainty, with strong economic growth and tight labor markets. But the longer the stalemate continues, the heavier the toll, including the lack of new money for health, education, welfare, or infrastructure projects until an annual budget is approved by Parliament.
Netanyahu hopes a peace plan that U.S. President Donald Trump presented in January will help him win an unprecedented 5th term, though the Palestinians have rejected it. In the business sector this week, eBay Incorporated is looking to sell its South Korean unit, which includes Gmarket, one of the largest online marketplaces in the country. According to the Korea Economic Daily newspaper, the tentative deal could bring the company nearly $5 billion. Possible buyers include other South Korean retail giants, as well as private equity funds like MBK.
eBay bought Gmarket in 2009 for $1.2 billion and combined it with its South Korean unit, Internet Auction Company. At the time, the combined companies accounted for 87% of the country's online consumer-to-consumer market, and that data comes from the Korean Antitrust Agency.
In recent years, however, Gmarket has faced new competitors, including a startup called Coupang, which now has the largest e-commerce market share, according to an e-commerce market 2019 report.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait to see if this transaction is finalized and what potential effects it will have on the e-commerce industry in the future.
Yeah, just stay tuned here to FISM News and we'll let you know.
The novel coronavirus strain emerged in Wuhan late last year and has since infected more than 86,000 people, the majority of which in China. Outside of China, it has reached 53 other countries.
In addition to flight cancellations in dozens of airports, there are many other global events coming to a grinding halt over the virus. We'll just cover a couple of them right now. First up in India, the world's main supplier of generic drugs has restricted the export of 26 pharmaceutical ingredients and medicines as the coronavirus outbreak continues to bring havoc to supply chains.
The British government unveiled its action plan to tackle the spread of the coronavirus on Tuesday, including possible measures to close schools, force people to work from home, and cancel large-scale gatherings.
The second largest book fair in Germany, held in Leipzig, was just canceled in an effort to contain the spread of the virus. Last year, the fair had 286,000 attendees.
Also, the second international conference, where Pope Francis and other religious leaders were to sign a global compact on education, has been rescheduled for mid-October. Talks of postponing the 2020 Tokyo Olympics are also taking place, but no final word on that one yet.
And that's just a small sample of the impact so far. It's clear that coronavirus is leaving a profound impression on the world at this time. But despite all this negative impact of the virus, there are few places where things are improving.
That's right. In fact, one of the places is in the province of Wuhan. The officials have begun closing their temporary coronavirus hospitals after safely discharging the last recovered coronavirus patients. Additionally, 4 Chinese provinces lowered their coronavirus emergency response measures this week.
Well, that's pretty good.
I know.
Well, and one last thing to know, well, for right now at least, and that's that equity markets around the world rose on Monday. The prospect that central banks will cut interest rates to soften the economic blow of the coronavirus hurt investors, but it also drove U.S. government debt yields to record lows. A string of tornadoes tore through Nashville, Tennessee, and surrounding counties early on Tuesday. The tornadoes killed at least 25 people, leaving dozens missing and reducing neighborhoods to rubble. Tennessee Emergency Management Agency said counties with the greatest impacts include Davidson, Wilson, and Putnam counties.
The storm struck as many were sleeping in Nashville, home to 691,000 people and one of the fastest-growing cities in the United States. The White House said Trump would visit the devastated areas on Friday. As many of you know, yesterday was Super Tuesday, and the results are in. A resurgent Joe Biden had sweeping victories across the South, Midwest, and New England on the biggest day of voting in the U.S. Democratic primary season. Biden is now setting up a one-on-one battle against Bernie Sanders, who led in California with 58%.
And just a week ago, Biden was hoping to stay within reach of Sanders to keep alive a chance to catch up as the race moved on, but initial tallies showed him actually leading Sanders in delegates for the day, 332 to 265, with hundreds more to be allocated. Biden, whose campaign was on the rocks just weeks ago, won 9 of 14 states voting on Super Tuesday, including surprise wins in Texas and Massachusetts.
Biden emerged as a champion for the more moderate wing of the party against Sanders, who is the progressive senator with strong support among younger voters.
That's right. The results of the evening were less than rewarding for Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire and former New York City mayor who spent more than $500 million on advertising. His only victory was in the U.S. territory of American Samoa. He dropped his bid and endorsed Joe Biden on Wednesday.
$500 million is a lot to put into advertising.
Yeah, I think he just realized it wasn't worth the investment after a while.
Probably. Tuesday was also a tough night for Senator Elizabeth Warren, who finished well behind Sanders and Biden in most states, including her home state of Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's got to be rough.
Oh, yeah.
After Biden's Super Tuesday surge, Wall Street futures jumped back up after emergency rate cut earlier this week. Wall Street was set for strong gains on Wednesday, with the Dow Jones on course to gain back most of its heavy losses from the previous session. Fears of a global slide into recession and a resulting collapse in U.S. corporate earnings this year have knocked $3.1 trillion off the value of major U.S. companies in the past 10 days. The U.S. Supreme Court began hearing arguments on Wednesday in a major abortion rights case. The case involves a challenge to a Louisiana law that imposes restrictions on doctors that could make it harder for women to obtain the procedure.
The court, with a 5-4 conservative majority, was hearing an hour of arguments in an appeal by Shreveport-based abortion provider Hope Medical Group for Women, seeking to invalidate the 2014 law. 2 of Louisiana's 3 clinics that perform abortions would be forced to close if the law is allowed to take effect.
The clinic sued to block the law, which requires the doctors who perform abortions to have something called admitting privileges at a hospital within 30 miles of the clinic. This would basically add an added hurdle, which will limit access to abortions by giving hospitals veto power.
A federal appeals court upheld the law, and President Donald Trump's administration supports Louisiana in the case.
Well, that's hardly to be surprised. I mean, fairly pro-life administration.
Oh, yeah, a president who's been able to go to the March for Life.
Yeah, that's right. But here's the thing. The U.S. Supreme Court appeared divided. The Louisiana case will test the willingness of the court to uphold Republican-backed abortion restrictions being pursued in numerous conservative states.
U.S. carrier Delta Airlines and British retail bank HSBC UK were named as major winners of a global anti-slavery award on Thursday after training flight attendants to spot trafficking and giving bank accounts to slavery survivors. Supermarket Aldi and Australian jeans maker Outland Denim were also hailed for their efforts to eradicate forced labor in the Thomson Reuters Foundation's Stop Slavery Award.
According to the United Nations International Labor Organization, about 25 million people globally are estimated to be trapped in forced labor, from factories and farms to fishing boats.
The Stop Slavery Award has previously been won by brands such as U.S. tech behemoths Apple and Intel, German sportswear giant Adidas, and consumer goods company Unilever.
With modern slavery increasingly dominating headlines worldwide, businesses are under more pressure from both governments and consumers to disclose what actions they are taking to ensure their supply chains are free from slavery. Let's be sure to keep up that pressure because it really is a good thing.
It really is a good thing that organizations are being rewarded for such effort.
Yeah, it is great. Yeah. It's good that people know about it now. U.S. health officials said on Thursday they expect to get enough coronavirus tests to public laboratories this week for about 400,000 people.
U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar told reporters that officials expect to ship an additional 1.5 and 1.7 million tests by the end of next week.
Following a briefing with lawmakers, Azar said, "Right now it is challenging if you are a doctor wanting to get somebody tested," but added that this should get better by next week.
The private contractor that makes the test is called Integrated DNA Technologies Incorporated, or IDT for short. This company is seeking to get its tests to hospitals and other labs for wider use in the coming days.
Separately, other HHS officials offered a lower than expected rate of mortality from the coronavirus than that was estimated by the WHO, saying that the rate was hard to quantify because many people with the disease do not experience severe enough symptoms to get tested.
The WHO this week said about 3.4% of confirmed cases of COVID-19 have died, but the Assistant Secretary for Health, Brett Griar, said that the best estimate of the overall mortality rate in the U.S. lies somewhere between 0.1% as well as 1%.
Well, that's certainly some good news. But remember, you still want to wash your hands.
Please. The European Union states are considering radical measures to cope with the coronavirus outbreak. The EU is considering mobilizing retired healthcare workers and medical students to help hospitals handle growing numbers of patients.
More than 4,000 cases have been detected so far across the EU. And officials say it's necessary to boost the supply of protective gear for safety of healthcare workers. And the scary thing is, many facilities are currently facing shortages.
That's not good. EU health ministers are due to discuss the coronavirus outbreak at a meeting in Brussels on Friday.
Thank you for watching. This has been FISM News.